Okay. Here's John. Something.
Hello, friends, family, fellow entrepreneurs, and chamber members. It's a pleasure to be here. Back on Long Island. I moved away for a little while, but I'm back home. And it feels like home. And just out of curiosity, before today, who knew who I was? Just by a show of hands, a couple of you, hands down. Does anybody not know who I am? Just raise your hands. Awesome. Does anybody think raising your hand is silly? Just raise your hands. Is there anybody who won't raise their hand no matter what I ask you? Just raise your hand so I immediately can pick out the hecklers. I had a feeling, sir. So, as you heard, my name is John Reid. My goddaughter refers to me as a serial entrepreneur. I own and operate and lead 9 different businesses out of a little office in Plainview. And when I'm asked to speak, which I get asked to speak at colleges and schools, I have to think long and hard about what I want to say. What's going to inspire you, make you laugh, maybe make you think of the world a little different. And for me, here, with all of you that have way more experience at business than I ever could, I thought the best way to do it was reflect on some of the things that people have told me over my lifetime that have meant something to me and helped me get where I am. Little nuggets of information, inspiration, and I'm going to start with my grandmother. She's the smartest person I know. 95 years old when she passed. She was the matriarch of our family. She came from a hardworking Scottish family, and she always had something clever and encouraging to say in her own way. And when I finished college, I told my family, I want to be a magician. Went over about as well as a fart in church. People were skeptical. Some might even say, disappointed. Oh, what does your son do for a living? Oh, he's a professional goofball, my mother used to say. But not my granny. She said, look, I don't care what you do. Just try to be the best at it. I don't care if you go around collecting cans for the deposits. I just want to know that you're trying to get the biggest pile of cans. And it sounds like simple advice, but to me, I really took it to heart. In fact, if you Google celebrity balloon artist, I actually come up above Jeff Koons, which is kind of a big deal for me. I thought that was kind of cool. So my parents would look at like an A on a paper, and they would say, well, if you worked harder, could have been an A+. But not my granny. She always said, well, look, if you got an A, was it your best? I said, yeah, it was. She goes, good. You have to prioritize what is the best for you. No one else can set that bar. So set the bar accordingly. Oops. Next person on the list is one of the greatest magicians and magic teachers that the world has never heard of. And I'll never forget the first thing he showed me. It wasn't a magic trick. If you have a dollar bill and you want to take it out, this is a fun thing to do. It was sort of like a bar bet. And he said, if you look at a dollar bill, I know some of you are like, dollar bill? With tapping cards in Apple Pay, that's like the most rare commodity nowadays. But he said, if you look at the front of the dollar bill, there's a key on the front, a small key on the front, and a big one on the back. And if you find the small key on the front and then find the big one on the back, I'll let you keep the dollar. And this is actually a lesson that I teach to all of my kids in my after-school magic enrichment programs. I actually won an award a couple years ago for teaching over 10,000 kids how to do magic with math and science. And I teach them this as a lesson the same way Bob taught me. Bob Elliott lived right here in Cold Spring Harbor. And I would assume that almost no one has ever heard of him, but you might have heard of some of the people that he helped out. He helped out a young kid from New Jersey, David Kopkin. You might know him as David Copperfield, that's his stage name. He taught a young magician out of East Meadow, Chris Sarantis. You might know him as Chris Angel. He also taught a kid out of Sayville, Michael Carbonaro. He goes by Michael Carbonaro, that's a cool name, why would you change it? But he also taught me. And he taught me about the observation lesson that was based out of this dollar bill bar bet. And he didn't teach it to me because he wanted me to learn how to win beers at a bar, although I've won a bunch. If you look on the front of the bill, in this little green seal, there's a very small key. It looks like an old skeleton key. And when I teach somebody's got a bill out. Now here's the question. If you turn it over, can you see the big one on the back? It's about a third of the size of the bill. And when I teach the kids this, they're so interested in winning the bill, possibly proving that they're a little smarter than me. And they search and they search and they get as close as they can. And I ask them if they understand what it is to observe. And they all go, oh, I want to look. I want to look for the key. And I said, no, you really have to listen. You don't have to listen to what I said, but you have to listen to what I mean. If you're looking on the back and you're looking, what are you looking for? No, you're not. Observe what I said. I said, you find the small key on the front and the big 1 on the back. The word one, O-N-E, is written across the back of the bill. It's a third of the size. When you're in business, you have to listen. But not just what people say. Hey, honey, how's things? I'm fine. She's never fine. You have to really get to the heart of what they mean. And I think that's the most important lesson that Bob ever taught me. Sorry. Let's skip ahead to another woman in my life, my goddaughter. It's actually how I know Francesca. She's 20 years old. She's a journalism major at Northern Arizona University. And we've all had those low moments in our life. And at my lowest point, I went out to visit her. She was 3 years old, 3.5 years old. And I was in a really foul mood. Like the depression had really set in. I was at the lowest point financially, emotionally, spiritually. And I got there and I thought it would be a magic switch that she would flip. All of a sudden, everything would be great. And it wasn't right away. And we were at the Garden of the Gods, and she looked up and she said, John Reid, because she calls me by my full name. It's the weirdest thing. She doesn't call me Uncle John. She calls me John Reid. And she said, why, are you sad? I said, yeah. She said, why? And I don't know how to explain an existential crisis and clinical depression to a 3-year-old, so I just said, somebody hurt my feelings. They said something mean. And she reached down on the ground. She picked up a rock, handed it to me, and said, well, you just got to keep moving forward. She turned on her heels and skipped away. What a jerk. She heard the line in some movie, thought it would help me out, and it did, because she didn't invalidate my feelings. She didn't sugarcoat things. She said, look, life is going to come at you hard and fast. Sometimes the best way to get over something is to get through it. And I've carried that with me my whole life, and a rock. Last, advice from a bartender. For a few years, I was living in Manhattan. I used to, right at the height of the craft cocktail scene. And I would go into these bars and I would talk with the bartenders, because for me, the art of mixology really is an art, but it's also a science. There's chemistry. And truthfully, if you've ever spoken to a bartender, it's therapy. And I was sitting at a bar with a young gentleman named Stephen Lewis, and a guy comes up and looks at what Stephen's doing and says, man, you're the best mixologist I've ever met. And I observed that Stephen kind of smiled and said, thank you so much. The guy walked off with his drink. I said, you didn't appreciate that comment, did you? And he said, nope. Why not? I should point out that Stephen has won awards nationally and internationally for his work in the craft cocktail industry. And he said, I'm not a mixologist, I'm a bartender. So I, of course, said, what's the difference? Well, he said, a mixologist serves a drink. A bartender serves a customer. He said, it's not about what I put in the glass. I can teach a 12-year-old how to make a killer Manhattan. But I listen to what's going on in their life. I listen to what they like, what they love, what their passions are, what their pains are. And I have a conversation with them. That makes me a good bartender. So, what's the point of all these stories? I'm not here to brag about the fact that I lead an incredibly charmed life. I have had the good fortune to fall face first into opportunity after opportunity that has helped me out immensely in my life and career. But I do believe that it's because I was focused on serving the customer and the community, observing what they say and need, failing forward, and regardless, always doing my best. And it's my best. It's nobody else's best. It's the bar that I set for myself. I get up every day, and I get to make people smile for a living. That's the coolest job. When I told people I wanted to do that, they were like, oh, well, good luck with all that. And anytime in business, when I focused on the business instead of the people, I was reminded very abruptly and efficiently that I need to keep my community and my customers top of mind. And during the pandemic, I actually helped over 30 individuals start their own small business. Everybody was displaced. They didn't know what to do. And I'm happy to say that all but one are still going. Some of them are still just mom and pop side hustles that, help with their dance lessons for their kids and getting their kids to their hockey games. Some of them are full-fledged corporations with multiple employees that are doing and thriving in their own small communities, including a woman who puts pink flamingos on your front lawn with happy birthday signs. Fun fact, a group of flamingos is called a flamboyance. So, my first piece of advice wasn't how to trademark something or how to get their website going. It was to ask for help, reach out to their community, and realize that failure is a part of the journey. And as business owners, we all know the challenges that we've faced. And small businesses are becoming fewer and far between. And they are so important to our communities, our families, and the economy. If there's one thing I can leave you with today, it's that somebody helped us to get where we are. And there's some young kid that wants to start their own small business. They want to open a coffee shop or start a blog or repair typewriters, because somebody's got to do that for the hipsters in Brooklyn. But I implore you to observe when you see those kids and take a moment to ask yourself, how can I serve this person? Do your best to empathize with where they are in their dream of business ownership and encourage them to keep moving forward. When I was asked to give the talk, I was trying to figure out what I could say to make an impact. And as a chamber member, I think we can all agree that when you work on building your business, you'll make a living, but when you work on building a community, you'll make a difference. So from the kid in East Meadow, thank you for making a difference.